We got a confessional from her about the SNL character Debbie Downer and how she hates Debbie Downers. And I guess she felt like a lot of the women at this get together were being Debbie Downers. I think Margo was trying to get Kimi to be empathetic, but it wasn't working. This entire edit for Kimi in this episode is that she hates sob stories. What is up, everybody? Episode 3 of Ladies of London, The New Reign, aired last night, and I continue to be impressed with this cast. It has to be the most entertaining, messy group of women Bravo has put together in a while, probably. I mean, I don't watch all the Real Housewives franchises, but everything I hear is that all the franchises these days, or at least most of them, are boring or they're way too contrived. I think what works with this show is that these women have been actual friends, some of which for decades, that you really have those real relationships, which means you have all these real emotions come out on screen. But honestly, most importantly to me is that they are just so damn messy. Or at least some of them are. We started the episode with the fallout from episode 2, where Dara quit the show because she was getting caught in these lies about talking behind Myka's back, who was supposed to be her best friend. That was the big subject when Myka and Kimi and Lottie all met up together. Myka, I think, was still in shock from the aftermath of that party that Dara herself was throwing. And I still think the most shocking part of that party was when Myka wanted to pull Dara aside, and Dara said, "No, but I love you." It was very, very awkward. They also talked about how Missè was made out to look crazy during that party because Missè was the one bringing this up, and Dara was trying to say Missè was lying about it all. In confessional, Myka did talk about how over the years she heard how from other people that Dara maybe was talking about her behind her back, but she didn't want to believe that. Kimi is the person listening to all of this and telling us in confessional that if you have a toxic friend or just toxic people in general in your life, you need to just flush them down the toilet. One thing I want to learn is these women's astrology signs. I'm going to have to look into that if I can find anything. I cannot find any info on Kimi though, and as this episode went along, Kimi maybe becomes our new villain of the series with Dara allegedly quitting, although we will get to Dara here in a second, because Myka wanted to have a one-on-one with Dara and get the truth out of her. And so despite quitting in episode 2, Dara was in this episode. She did meet up with Myka and they talked about all of the shit that transpired. Myka was uncertain about what Dara she was going to see during this meeting. Is it the good friend that she believed her to be for so many years, knowing her since they were a teenager? Or is she going to get the Dara, this new side of Dara that she is just learning about? And I think it was still defensive, delusional Dara that she met up with, because she was still making it out to not be a big deal, saying that the bigger deal was Missè saying this in front of all of the people at her own party. I think in this one-on-one with Dara was basically saying that her issues were bigger than Myka's issues with the event, even though Myka was also the subject of the event, because that is the person that everyone learned Dara was talking shit behind her back. I really felt as though Dara was just acting shocked that Myka felt some way about what happened at the party. And it was just more confusing behavior from Dara. Since the show began, she's been delusional, but she also just dismisses Myka's feelings. And so it has been very hard to grasp how these two were allegedly such good friends since they were teenagers. So yeah, Dara just continued to deny everything that Missy said, continued to try to make it out to be lies from Missy, and that she just didn't say any of the things that Missy was saying. But in confessional, we learned that Myka believes Missy. Myka's wondering if she wants anything to do with this friendship anymore in general. Because Myka thinks that in a friendship, the defending needs to go both ways, and Myka feels like she's always defended Dara, which we saw examples of in the first episode. So I think Myka came away from this that even though she's known Dara since they were teenagers, and even though I've since learned in real life, I think she's one of Dara's daughter's godmothers, um, they were just going in circles during this discussion. At least that's how Dara felt. Dara said she had to go to work, but she loves Myka. She's sorry they're going through this. But in confessional, Myka was saying she's done with this friendship. And I don't know if that's completely the truth or if that's just the edit we're getting, because maybe Dara is officially done with the show now, even though we all thought she officially quit in episode 2 and then we see her again in episode 3. Missy, of course, is also still kind of feeling some type of way about how the party went down, because she was the one that was the truth teller and brought up all of Dara's messiness. She wants to make sure the rest of the group doesn't feel like she is lying. And so at their next get together, she kind of wants to get to know more of the women on a deeper level, which we will get to, which will bring us to more of Kimi being the new villain. But I, of course, want to touch upon Martha's story. Martha and Margo had their own little beef during a little confrontation when Martha was at her storage unit going over all of her old hats. I continue to quite enjoy Martha's whole storyline of going from riches to rags and then back from rags to riches and then back to rags where she is currently, because I do feel bad that she is penniless after her divorce and that all of her stuff is in storage while she is in a smaller, not so great house. However, listening to the more problems that she is causing for herself and watching Margo get more and more frustrated with the situation, I feel like people probably feel like Margo was being harsh on Martha, but I don't think that was the case. We learned that Martha gave her house key to some alleged builder, but she doesn't even know if that guy is a real builder. And this comes from a woman that was stalked in the past. So it does seem like another messy, bad decision from Martha. And look, I still think Martha is my favorite on the show because she is quite entertaining. But I can't defend her in this situation. I think Margo is right that Martha does a lot of bad decisions that make... She's kind of her own worst enemy. I mean, it is Martha's fault why she is in the situation that she is in. And I feel like Martha would admit that. But I do still understand why Margo got so frustrated with her here. It's almost as if she does purposeful things to keep her in bad situations. Margo went so far as to threaten Martha that she might step back from their friendship if Martha continues to be her own worst enemy. Because Margo is afraid that she might walk in and find Martha dead after she gives some random guy her house key. Margo said that Martha needs to stop waiting for someone to take care of her and take care of herself. And, well, maybe a little harsh. I think maybe that is good advice to Martha. Martha did talk in confessional about how Margo can be quite critical of her. But so far, these two have been painted as good friends. And I do think that Margo tries to help Martha. But I can totally understand her frustration boiling over in those scenes. Lastly, they all went to that wine tasting, and that is when Missy wanted people to kind of get to know each other on a deeper level, on a more personal type thing. And, Kimi usually won to tell jokes. We did get a whole edit of Emma and the other ladies talking about how getting to know Kimi, she comes along with a shocking sense of humor. I do think she uses humor as like not even totally as a defense mechanism, but kinda, but also as more like a shield. Kimmy's deep story was that her father is Haitian and he will make jokes about how he found this little white girl because clearly Kimmy does just look like a white woman and not like she has a Haitian father. But the other women decided to get deeper. Missy talked about losing her brother, who was shot and killed in front of his wife and child on Christmas Eve years ago. And Missy talked about how she normally doesn't speak on this issue because people judge the death, and the British media were talking about how he was killed because he was a drug dealer and it was a hit, which seemed to be a later discussion. But Kimmy did not like the tone change at this get together. And then Martha brought up how her sister committed suicide, and Lottie talked about her father having cancer. And Kimmy was having a very hard time listening to these deeper conversations. I think she felt like it was supposed to be a more fun day out. After that, some of the ladies were playing Prosecco Pong, which actually looked pretty fun, almost like beer pong, but you had to bounce the ball into the cup and whatnot. Lottie was questioning with most of the women why Kimmy can't be vulnerable, which was a good assessment of Kimmy. She uses her humor, so she doesn't have to be vulnerable. But Margo and Kimi were talking about some of the other women as the end of the episode was coming near, and they were talking about Emma at first. We learned that Kimi was friends with Emma's husband first, and they used to joke together. She says they were just friends. They never slept together, even though Margo was trying to dig into that. But later, Margo questioned Kimi about hating story time, and we got a confessional from her about the SNL character Debbie Downer and how she hates Debbie Downers. And I guess she felt like a lot of the women at this get together were being Debbie Downers. The talk turned to Missy's brother, and Kimmy says that she knew Missy's story about her brother and that it was some drug related thing. Margo was saying, well, that's what the media was saying. That was the press. Meanwhile, Martha was Googling the story, and the press story was that there was some hit on Kimmy's brother, which could be true. I don't know. But Margo was trying to get to Kimmy to tell her that this is a sob story. I think Margo was trying to get Kimmy to be empathetic, but it wasn't working. This entire edit for Kimmy in this episode is that she hates sob stories, and I guess she doesn't feel sorry for these sob stories. But judging by next week's preview, Margo is going to tell Missy about all of this in the next episode. So I see some Missy and Kimmy beef on the way. It seems like Kimmy might turn on Margo when Missy confronts her. But yeah, Kimmy is our new villain. These shows all need a villain or at least some sort of antagonist. And I don't know whose side I'm on. Because why would you get killed randomly in front of your wife and your kid on Christmas Eve? It seems it doesn't seem random. It does seem like there could be something behind that, but I haven't researched that, so I probably sound like Kimmy right now. But all of the press is saying that was the case. But the British press is awful, so who really knows? But I'm looking forward to the confrontation in the next episode.